Hey everyone, welcome to the charts chat. This is the 22nd of January 2019. My name's Adnan Abdul Hussain and I'll be taking us through this today. Just pull up the agenda. Share this in chat as well. So it doesn't look like there's much today. Scott, I don't know if you're on the call, but Scott put down Helm Summit dates. Do we have dates set for the summit yet, or is that still being figured out? Does anyone know?
This was discussed in, was it last week's Helm Dev Weekly?
Okay.
I don't remember if there were details on it there. Hold on.
I think I mentioned.
Handy.
Let me bring up notes for that. So I'm not seeing anything in the notes about the Helm Summit.
Maybe it was the week. No, it was the week before. Maybe the January 10th discussion. Helm Summit. When, where, how. The only thing we have on it are Michelle and Adam volunteered. Matt Butcher knows what's going on with it. So basically, some of the folks on our side, the Helm side, are working with the CNCF the CNCF to plan it. Their events team is going to take care of like the building logistics and all of those things we had to do last time. And they're trying to get the date figured out for it. And I'm not sure where they stand. The next guaranteed time we have with them to discuss this particular thing will be February 1st, Friday. So it's a week and a half away. We'll get guaranteed time with the CNCF to talk about it. I know Matt Butcher is the person who's been tracking this particular thing now.
Okay. So it sounds like we're still kind of unsure about this. I think there was a discussion on Keybase as well about this. Yeah, I think that was a while ago. Okay. Well, I guess since Scott isn't here, unless there are any other follow-up questions on that, I think we can move on to the next topic. Okay, Helm Hub planning, Matt.
All right. So here's the thing. I actually just had a quick chat with Chris over at the CNCF, Chris A. And so one of the things, the Helm Hub, we've talked, it's not going to scale. We have to come up with UX and things like that in order to fix it. For example, right now, everything is sent to the browser, and the browser does all searches and queries. Now, that obviously doesn't scale. Right now, we're at 498 charts ready to deploy, right? It was actually 499 earlier. Some repo updated. Something was deprecated. Something changed. But if you go to like the charts page, everything's pulled down and filtered. And so we've got some problems here, right? We list every repository. Well, that's not going to scale. We've got every chart, and then we got client-side querying. That's not going to scale, either in the UX or sending all of this information to the browser. And so we need to come up with new back-end APIs and a new front-end UX in order to handle this. The other thing we want to do is we want to tie search for the Helm Hub into Helm v3. So that way, when you do search, it can search the distributed repositories out there. And we need to come up with an API endpoint and document it and all that to couple into tools like Helm. And so there's a bunch of work that needs to be done in order to enable all this. Like, I don't know the UX that we should do or how the search should be or what the homepage looks like if we don't show all of them. Do we show the most recently updated, the newest repositories at it? I don't know.
I think we can draw from other examples like Packager and... Yeah.
But we need to come up with a plan for what we want to do here. So that way we are ahead of the problem showing up, right? Because once we get to thousands of charts in there, then it'll be too late. We need to hit it before we start running into problems so we can get some lead time on it. And part of the reason that I bring this up now is when I just chatted with Chris, He said the Helm project could go to the CNCF and say, we would like some money to go work on these things, and they can pay contractors to do it. So some of this, if we as a community can't find the time to go work on it, if we have a roadmap and plan and people who could be liaisons, we can just take a formal request to them, and they are happy to fund this, and they've offered.
That sounds like a good option, potentially.
It is. We just have to be able to tell them what to do. And that kind of thing. And so we need to come up with what that work scope would be, so that way we can ask for contractors to go do it. And I don't know if somebody wants to take a crack at that first in writing up, just, maybe documenting its issues and listing out those issues that need to be completed, and we can add, details to them or what. I started off with that handful of issues. I'll try and pull them up real quick. On Monocular. What? And there's issues on the search API, and then scaling Monocular. Drop the chat here. These are the issues I was looking at as being the first two that need to be tackled. I'll copy them into the doc too.
So Matt, I'm curious which part you're referring to as far as like vending out. Is the experience on the browser, the website and so forth, and enough the server side stuff, or is it the actual search API port? Because the latter is just a more interesting one for me, at least.
It depends on which ones we want to go do. The search API is something we probably need as part of the first one to do the experience, right? So like in the charts page, there's a search capability. We can't keep all of that client side as we scale up. It's got to be moved server side because we can't send all of the objects to the browser for it to filter. And that search API can probably be built in a way that feeds for other tools to use it as well.
Yeah, I guess when I think of Helm Hub, I think of it as basically an aggregator over Helm repos of various types, not just the new stuff. But a Helm search API, should it be any different whether it's searching the aggregator or searching, specific repos? And what I'm getting at is, what I'm trying to gather is all of the requirements that people need and the challenges that people have in implementing it, so that we can get that conversation happening on what a standard registry search API could be, which should be able to support this, because in fact, the word registry is even an interesting word. I think we're going to, basically the distribution, the multi-artifact type registry search API. And I just want to make sure I'm capturing all the requirements for that, so we can come up with a design.
I expect this API to be different for the Helm Hub than the artifact registry, for the simple fact that this is an aggregator, and it needs to have metadata that tells you what registries things came from in order for you to handle working with those registries then. And so the type of information being conveyed is going to be somewhat different than if you have that. And so I will not be surprised if that's different, but I haven't gone into detail on it yet. We actually have to sit down and do that planning work and look at those specific cases and what that means. But there is different types of information being conveyed than an individual repository host. For example, the hub will have to tell you what registry, and it has to deal with both the V1 and the new stuff, the OCI. And so it has to deal with all of these situations and then make it all searchable and tell you where it comes from. And so it's a mildly different use case, and this is the kind of thing that we can actually code for inside of Helm when we talk to different APIs. That shouldn't be a problem to deal with some of these. But it is a matter, because Helm has to be able to talk to private ones that are not listed on there. So it needs to know how to talk to different things in addition to this registry.
No, it's fair. I think I'm wondering if it could be a superset, because I think what you're getting at is not only do you have to send up more information up for maybe some context, but also the results need to give you back more information and say, okay, well, this Helm is actually over at this particular location. So that's fair. I'm wondering if we could use this, though, again, I'm hoping maybe it's a superset and it's not radically different. and we can just, what are the requirements? And the thing that you made me think about, several weeks ago was the version range element. So can we somewhere capture what are the requirements of the search API?
And we'll do that, by the way, just as part of doing 589, because with the CNCF has offered to pay developers to come do this and help us with this particular part if we go put in the formal request. They brought it up to us, and so this is something we can go do with them, but we will have to come up with the requirements and needs and usher them through. So that's something that we need to do before we go with that request. And if we want this to happen in a reasonable amount of time, because they've got to get the contractors and approve the budget and those kinds of things, there's some lead time to this. And so we got to come up with the requirements and the scope for them to go do that. So yes, we will have to do this. But where they're not, it's not like the CNCF is coming in to say fund Helm, but this small part, because it does enable the ecosystem, is really important to the ecosystem. And so we do need to go figure that out for them. And that's one of the technical things we need to dig into.
So just a point of clarification, the vendors that you're looking to sub are not to go and do the requirements gathering. It's once all the requirements and the wireframing of the concept is done, they would go execute. Is that what you're thinking?
Or we could go to them and say, this is what we want as far as it goes, and they could go wireframe it too. We could say, we need to solve this UX problem with these, with listing repositories, right? Which is essentially namespaces. If you went to other things, we need to solve it. We don't have a solution. Go create something. Or we may be specific in what we want, but really we're looking for somebody to go off and do the work, and we need to give them the bounds by which they go do the work.
Unless the bounds being the requirements part. Okay.
Yeah, it's the requirements. It's basically unless we want to go do it ourselves, and we can come up with where we want to work and where we want them to go, as long as we just go document it and figure it out.
Yeah, hopefully it's something we can, like if it's, UX engineers that we can work together with to figure out what the best UX for a site like this should be. That would be quite nice in my opinion.
So
yeah, it's definitely a unique skill. I was not trying to impose any question on the UX. I assume that there's much better people. I was more of the search API requirements. That's the part that I was more focused on.
Yeah, I would like to see if we want to implement that in the hub. I mean, I think this is probably going to be in the future. I think figuring out what, the scaling issues and the layout and stuff is probably going to be on the top of our plates, and then figuring out the search API might be later on. At least integrating it with Helm might be later on, and hopefully by then we have a spec on how the chart repositories are going to have that, and then we can implement that in the hub.
I do think we need to have the search API figured out and shipped in Helm v3. Because right now the de facto place to do this is the stable repository, because it's what shipped. That's the reason many people want to have their stuff in stable, because it's included in Helm search out of the box. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the reason behind it. And so I think that we probably need to have an alternative for them to say, put it in here in Helm v3, it'll still be searchable. And I think that's an important thing if we want them to not want to be in stable anymore.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fine. I think we just need to make sure we align with whatever else is going on with the repositories model changing. And I think that's Steve's concern as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could be an easy superset. I'm hoping it doesn't become too completely fractured set of works. That's all. And Matt's perfectly right. There's a superset of questions and answers that have to come back.
Yeah, and we've got to go start figuring out the search API stuff on the OCI side for other things. In fact, that's going to start impacting Docker and everyone here in the near future with shipping the new Docker app stuff whenever they do, and CNAB and all of that. So it's on the short list of things to go figure out over there. Okay. So Adnan, since Monocular's kind of been your baby, how did you want to approach figuring out some of these things?
So I don't think I'll have any time this quarter to really start looking at requirements. If anyone else is interested in looking at this, that would be great. But I'm happy to also help review ideas that come in as well. I think so far we have a couple of issues in the issue queue. It'd be good to kind of flesh those out a bit more and start discussing some of that stuff until we come up with maybe a full proposal on this.
So what we really need is somebody to take the action to go write up a proposal for how do we iterate and go what's next. Really start targeting 588 to see what are the things we need to do. Does that sound right, Adnan? And it sounds like you're busy and you have time to like review it, but not time to construct it.
Yeah. Is anyone interested in picking this up? Maybe.
I'm willing
to reach out to the mailing list as well.
Yeah.
If no one on the call is able to look at this.
So
as part of the OCI stuff, I'm going to be gathering the requirements for the search stuff. So if you wanted to, the search stuff will be specific to the OCI distribution stuff, but that could also be the basis for. I'm trying to figure out, could it be done as a layer, and like whatever's in the OCI stuff plus this, or maybe it's the list that goes into it. So I can volunteer for the OCI search stuff, but that again won't be. I don't know enough around the Helm stuff to say here's a superset of what the Helm repo stuff is.
So from the UX standpoint and scaling that, I guess I can do it. I've actually done these kinds of marketplace things before, so I have enough context to go with. And starting to craft it. We'll keep obviously the same style of a front end web app you download and the back end API that can pull information. It'll just be different APIs that pull different information. And we can start with that as far as the how goes, and then I can take that to do. And hopefully in 2 weeks when we come back, I'll have something prepared to review.
That'd be great.
As far as getting into the search API, what I would suggest is we actually go chase that down on the OCI side, which we are already starting to do. Mm-hmm. And so once we have something there, then we can say, okay, we'll take a dependency and evaluate where that fits in. We'll highlight as part of 588, we need to have that search capability. But as far as the actual API constructs, we can punt on that for a while. Does that sound like a good path forward?
Sounds
the
good to me.
OCI search stuff, I think for the next couple of weeks we'll be gathering the requirements. So yeah, I think it's going to be a bit before that lands.
Okay.
Okay, is that all you had on that, Matt?
That's all I had. I wanted to make sure we got a path forward going on it.
Cool. Sounds like we do. Great. And that's it. There's nothing else on the agenda here. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to bring up? I can take silence as a no, in which case we can just end it a bit early today. Okay, thanks everyone. See you next week.
Hey Matt, sorry, just as I wanted to layer it. Matt, if you have a minute, we can, if you wanted to chat afterwards.
Sure.
Do you have my cell handy? Because I'm driving.